Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Well, first of all, thank you very much, Professor Jamil Usman, a good friend of mine, and he was also my boss when I was in IIIM for so many years. Allow me just to start to say this. As you can see, my name is Malik Badri, and that is, I mean, it came by default, I guess. I didn't mean to have my name as Malik Badri, but I have a Facebook page, and whenever the photo of Malik Badri anywhere, I will be tagged as saying, "Is that your photo?" And my daughter was telling me, well, I guess the Facebook people are very racist. They think that Sudanese look alike. And that's why whenever Malik Badri's photo is on Facebook, I will be tagged as somebody who looks like Malik Badri. Allow me just to say this at the beginning. Alhamdulillah الذي جمعنا على خير فعل ومقال في حق واحد منا نشهد أنه من خيارنا. And for me, when I say something about Malik Badri, I should let you know that the first time I met Malik Badri in person was in 1977 after the national reconciliation in Sudan. I was a student at University of Khartoum, and he was a professor who was coming from outside because of the national reconciliation between the then government of Ja'far Nimeri and the Islamic movement in Sudan. And he was giving a public talk, and it was well attended, a big crowd. I think it was more than 800 people were attending his talk. And in that talk, it was about the Sudanese character or the Sudanese personality. And I was listening, and I thought, I mean, this person is speaking about me, and perhaps he was speaking about so many others at my age and perhaps older than me. And he touched me the way he was speaking. And since then, I followed actually whatever he wrote, or wherever he was invited to give a talk, I'll be attending that talk. Now, it was unfortunate that he was not staying in Sudan for quite long. I mean, he was on and off, as you know. I mean, most of his time was outside Sudan. And you get to know him in Sudan, perhaps through his writings. And that was the only way we were acquainted with his work. But I was also lucky enough to accompany him when he came to Sudan in the in the 80s to serve in the University of Khartoum, the Faculty of Arts. I became assistant professor over there in the late 80s. And then the beginning of the 90s, he decided to go to Malaysia as a visiting professor. And then after that, as somebody who was completely appointed there in IIUM. I was lucky enough because I was appointed there again, found a job in Malaysia, and I followed my Sheikh Malik Badri there, and we stayed together for more than 23 years, working in IIUM or living in Kuala Lumpur and seeing each other perhaps on daily basis. Now, I would like just to draw your attention to a very important, perhaps, thing that after IIIT had their conference in London about the legacy of Ismail al-Farouqi, may Allah bless his soul, we at IIUM decided to have another conference on the legacy of Ismail al-Farouqi just to continue to follow up the conference which was held in London. And I should say the conference which was held in London, I had the opportunity, I guess, to speak to my Sheikh, Dr. Hisham al-Talibi there for a number of hours. It was a very enjoyable time with you, Dr. Hisham al-Talibi there. So we came to Malaysia and we had another conference on the legacy of Al-Faruqi. And we invited our Sheikh, Professor Anis Ahmad there. He was one of the keynote speakers. And also Malik Badri was one of the keynote speakers to speak about Faruqi. And I just would like just to repeat what he said there in his keynote speech about Faruqi. He was telling us that Faruqi was a graduate of the American University of Beirut in the 40s. And Malik Badri came in the 50s to graduate also from the same faculty of Arts and Science. And he was telling me and telling the audience that in the American University of Beirut at that time, it was the heyday of Arab nationalism, and Constantin Zureyq and others were there in the university. These ideas of Arab nationalism, and did his PhD. The first major work of his was on Uruba and religion. It was supposed to be continued for 3 volumes. He only finished 1 volume, and later on, he decided just to abandon that project after he met the IIIT people, and he became one of the champions, actually, of Islamization of human knowledge, as we all know. But Malik Badri was saying that the intellectual environment in the American University of Beirut was in such a way that would force you to embrace Arab nationalism as a political doctrine and intellectual doctrine as well. But at the same time, those who were coming from Islamic background were resisting that and were accommodating their Islamic ethos into an understanding of the Ummah, that Ummatic aspect of it. And Faruqi, I guess, was one of them before Malik Badri. And then Malik Badri, when he came, perhaps he continued the same legacy. He was impacted by the situation in the American University of Beirut, as well as Faruqi before him. But one thing was said is that if you want to fight the Pharaoh, perhaps an intellectual fight, you get somebody from the palace of the Pharaoh. And I think both of them were coming from the palace of the Pharaoh. I mean, the whole idea of Islamization of human science, as it was shown in the video, that it was a shock. When you encounter with the secular humanist paradigm of thought, and then you as a Muslim are supposed, you as a Muslim supposed to come up with your own initiative and your own paradigm. As Malik Badri said, and perhaps Faruqi would reiterate the same thing, there was nothing. I mean, we were backward, and social sciences were developed in the West, and it was a challenge for us, and also it was an opportunity for us to advance knowledge, as Professor Anis Ahmad said, and come up with psychology which is not meant for Muslims, but for whole humanity, a universalistic paradigm of psychology which would attend to the needs of the Muslims, but also would be good for all humanity as well. Now, from that keynote address which Professor Malik Badri said about Faruqi, I thought he was speaking not about Faruqi, but rather was speaking about himself. I mean, for some of you who attended that keynote address of Malik Badri about Faruqi, you would realize that no, he was not speaking about himself. No, he was not speaking about Faruqi, but rather he was speaking about himself through Faruqi and presenting his own understanding of Islamization of human knowledge and the legacy of Faruqi from his own personal experience. It was very much understood that both of them studied in the American University of Beirut, and Malik Badri continued, actually, after he finished his studies, his PhD, continued to lecture in University of Beirut, and I'm pretty sure, I mean, he had some difficulties over there. to make his stand and to make himself heard and to be part of that intellectual environment, which was, intellectually speaking, I mean, was very hostile to Islam and anything Islamic. But he found his way there. And obviously, after that, he decided to go to the Jordanian University in Amman. Now, Malik Badri, for me, we spent time in IIUM together, and we were interacting on daily basis. We will see him. So many of the good things, I should testify to this, as Professor Omar Kasuli said, and I should admit also that all the good things that I had in my life and I had in my character was perhaps because of Malik Badri and others. But most important of all, I guess it was because of Malik Badri. I enjoyed his company, no doubt about it. And at the end of my time in IIUM and also his time in IIUM, I asked him this question: why don't you, because in Sudan, you have to keep in mind that the socio-political history of Sudan was included in the memoir of his father, Sheikh Babikr Badri. He has like 3 volumes memoirs where he talks about the era of the Mahdiya as well as the era of the Anglo-Egyptian government in Sudan. Now, I told him, why don't you continue that legacy of your father and write about the socio-political history and with a psychological dimension, which is very important in this sense, of Sudan through your own memoirs. He agreed to this. And we started to have this in IIUM radio station for like, I think 4 sessions or 5 sessions, and then he decided to stop. Unfortunately, he decided to stop. I'm not so sure whether IIUM radio station is still having these sessions with Malik Badri of his memoirs or not. Now, he was telling me, and as Dr. Hisham Talib said, that I didn't know that the book on the biography of the Prophet ﷺ was written. I didn't know that. He didn't tell me. But he was telling me, this was in 2013, that the final project he would like to do would be a biography of the Prophet ﷺ from the perspective of psychology. And I said, well, that's a very noble thing to be done. But I was not aware at all of the fact that he developed this and it's now in the printing press. And I'm very happy to know that. And I'm pretty sure that this is going to be a very important aspect of his intellectual and spiritual legacy as well. Having said this, I should say this. I mean, that IIIT did a great job, I guess, to commemorate the legacy, as well as a great scholar like Malik Badri. He's not only a Sudanese, but he belongs actually to the whole Ummah. He is as Sudanese as Malaysian. He is as Sudanese as Pakistani, because he loved Pakistan very much. I know that very well. And he is as Sudanese as perhaps Turkish and other, and Indonesian, of course. And he actually was a wonderful person, and a great loss, no doubt about it. And I pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that he would reward him handsomely. And assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.